everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Once again, joined by my good buddy, Mark Darden, with the striker face, if not the extra arms. And today, as you can see from the cover he's holding up, we're going to be finishing up our review of the first offering from Mark Silvestri for Image Comics, CYBERFORCE, the miniseries. This is issue number 4, the conclusion. And that's going to basically kind of end our whole kind of trip through memory lane with the Image founders and their initial offerings. We looked at Spawn, we looked at Youngblood, we looked at Wildcats, we looked at Savage Dragon, we looked at Shadowhawk, and now we're finishing up with, once again, CYBERFORCE issue number 4. Mark, how are you today, man?
Boy, I really, now I'm disappointed with myself that I didn't print this out and then make a little mouth cut piece. It's literally, it's a near perfect size, really. I mean, you just move it forward a little bit for force perspective, bam. I could have just been doing this the whole episode.
I would even venture to say you could just go find that issue in a dollar bin and for $1 get the actual like cover and just cut it up, right?
Yeah, just could cut the mouth off and just hey guys.
Keep the nice slick silvery reflective gimmick cover. The first gimmick cover, I think, for CYBERFORCE, right?
Now that we're holding this up, there's that Mortal Kombat character who looks just like this with the
Kano.
Yeah. And that would have been first, wouldn't it?
Pretty sure, yeah. Mortal Kombat came out a little bit before Image Comics. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right.
That's just looking at the face.
Swiping going on. Yeah,
a little bit. Didn't occur to me earlier, but now I'm looking at it.
So we'll start with the cover, I guess. Fine shot of Stryker's face, but this is that typical kind of, I've seen this before. Incredible Hulk by Dale Keown has an issue where it's close up to the Hulk's face. Dale Keown did it again with Pitt, #1. There it is, right? So this is, I've always said, I feel like this is a deadline cover. It's like when you're not sure, you have no ideas coming, you're like, all right, just a big headshot and let's move on, get it done. Couple of hours and you're through.
Plus, you got the gimmick thing going on. I mean, Shadowhawk did the silver cover helmet. Like, wait, I could do his gimmick, but with the face. It would be cooler if the eye had gotten a treatment. Like if there was a red foil eye. And throw glow in the dark on that too. So just when you turn the lights off and just the eyes would glow and maybe have some streaks.
And then die cut and fold out and like just make it the ultimate gimmick cover because the actual art is not that great. I mean, it's a fine headshot, but it's just not very evocative, I guess.
Yeah,
it's to me, fine. For the last issue of the miniseries too, I thought all the other covers were pretty solid. So this one just kind of just ho-hum, I guess, for me.
What's up with these lines here, though? Like, what's up with these strings?
Those are veins or nerves or striations or something. He's doing his best Macho Man imitation here, I guess.
I get the dialogue,
but then coming across, I don't know.
Stuff, yeah. I don't know what you're flexing there.
That's just the Image style, man. If you pull up that Pit cover again, I'm sure you'll see a bunch more of those.
He closed in on it though.
Oh, he's a little too close. I still see a bit of it though on the. Yeah.
Whoa. Oh, I don't got a forced perspective. Nothing.
That worked out well. Yeah, just kind of a lackluster cover, I think, as opposed to the first 3, which were pretty decent on this miniseries. So yeah.
Yeah, they were pretty good. The first one, we got the action shot. Yeah. The second one was the one where the most of like, oh, there's too many people on this page, and the layering's not quite working out. The third one, then you got a very standard, and yeah.
It still just feels like all those covers he put a lot more effort in than this one specifically.
Well, and Todd did this for issue 4 too, because you got the Violator head shot.
Yeah, it was an Image. Maybe it's a deadline issue, man. I definitely think it's a deadline cover. That's what I would describe it as.
Yeah.
I feel like all the Image guys at one time or another did this cover.
Oh yeah, the sweat that really stands out there.
Yeah, the sweat looks kind of weird on this cover. Doesn't look
Yeah.
like sweat to me. Looks like another fluid that I'm not going to get into. So I don't know what's been going on there.
Again, if it glowed in the dark, then it might be cool.
Maybe it happened in the dark too.
Yeah. Oh, buddy. Oh,
All right, enough
you got
about this
cyber
cover.
forced.
Cyber forced.
Yeah.
First things first, when we look at the credits, it gives a title to the story, The Tin Men of War, Part 4. Did I miss issue 1, 2, and 3 where they mentioned that? Because to me, when I look at this feels like the first time it's mentioned that there's an actual title to the story.
Yeah, I hear you on this. Kind of like Star Wars starting with episode 4 and being like, oh, A New Hope. I'm like, A New Hope of what? Like, yeah, 10-minute war. I mean,
Yeah, I had no idea that this storyline was called that.
yeah, it's odd.
We've got Mark Silvestri on pencils, of course, his brother helping out story and script. Inks Scott Williams for the whole issue, so that's kind of fun. I've mentioned this a lot of times with the image artists. I do prefer when they ink themselves, but I think Scott Williams here is doing a pretty darn good job on top of Mark Silvestri, and we're not yet at the period where I feel like Mark Silvestri is fully kind of trying to ape Jim Lee. He's still got a fairly distinctive style, although here and there, especially more in the background elements, further away elements, I do see a little bit of that Jim Lee vibe that comes through, obviously, with Scott Williams inking, as he is generally Jim Lee's regular inker.
Yeah, it's really too bad. What was it? Al Green? Or who was the inker from X-Men?
Dan Green.
Dan Green. Oh, Al Green's singer. Yeah, too bad Dan Green didn't come with him because I really liked that style and rougher, and so it would definitely differentiate. It makes so much sense that if you've got Scott Williams inking you, he kind of a lot of the artists that he inks end up looking more Jim Lee-ish with him on there. Like when David Fitch did Batman, but he had Scott Williams inking. It's like, ooh, it's still different than how Jim Lee would do it, but it's similar. That Jim Lee-ish vibes always coming through because of Scott Williams' treatment.
Yeah, you start to realize that maybe that Jim Lee aesthetic is a little bit more down to Scott Williams rather than Jim Lee. And Jim Lee recently, obviously, he's not producing a lot of comic book work. He's doing a lot of covers and illustrations and stuff. Some of the stuff he's been doing in the last few years where he's inking himself and he's using white medium and he's being a little more illustrative, I really like a lot of times when Jim Lee inks himself, I feel like there's more energy. It's like slightly rougher. I remember he did this thing on Batman Black and White where he inked himself, and it was kind of almost like a more simplified kind of inking technique, almost like he was doing a little bit of a play on the Dark Knight style of inking, Frank Miller's inking on Dark Knight. Even though Dark Knight is credited to Klaus Janson, there's a lot of pages in there that Frank Miller wasn't happy with and that he re-inked himself. And all of those styles, I think, are just a little bit more interesting aesthetically than when Scott Williams inks him. Not that it's bad in any way, but it's also it's very slick with Scott Williams, and I find that the textures start to look too much the same. Everything kind of has that metallic, glowy sheen. Where when Jim Lee's inking himself, we get more distinct textures, and Mark Silvestri's kind of the same. But I will say that I don't feel like if you look at this page here, overall it feels like Mark Silvestri, but for some reason when I look at that newscaster, the inking treatment on her feels very Jim Lee.
Yeah, I hear you. What you're saying makes total sense. One note to the credits page, while it looks very clean, like it was the same team, you get to the thank yous, and there's an additional inker, there's additional letterer, there's a couple additional colorists. So nice little trick there. But it looks like there was some more helping get this done.
Feels like it was a hard issue to get out, right? March, and cover dated July 93, if I'm not mistaken, right? So 4 issues from Mark Silvestri took almost a year.
Yeah, right. Yep, he was very slow getting CYBERFORCE out. Along with Rob Liefeld. Yeah, he was one of the slow ones.
I think they're the two that were kind of the worst with the deadlines.
Yeah. So the first page, big note that I wanted to make is this really needed a G.I. Joe style opening. Like it just needed to like tell you who the sides were. Like just say like cyber data, an evil mutant corporation hell-bent on wiping out all humanity. Boom. CYBERFORCE, a band of ex-cyber data operatives who escaped their control and have vowed to free other mutants. You know, simple, like just lay it out there and then on with the story.
Yeah, it's funny you say GI Joe because when you just did that, similar to GI Joe, I was kind of thinking of the A-Team intro, right?
Oh,
That kind of works in the same way, right? It just lays down what you need to know, and then you jump into the episode. Yeah, I mean there is some sort of, they're using the news reporter here to recap what's been going on and the players and what you need to know. But again, when you do that with no visual reference, recently I remember I saw you commented on it on Tribe #1. That's a book that totally suffers from that because like we get kind of a quick description on the first page of like the players, but there's no associated images. So as you go through the book, you're like, is that who he was talking about earlier? Like that book just completely confuses me as a first issue anyways. But you get a little bit of that here where you're talking about all these things, but you're not getting a visual cue as to what you're referring to. So it's all kind of slightly nebulous, right?
Mm-hmm. It's pretty sad that even when you're mutants and you have a much bigger thing to fight for, you're still just grabbing TVs and radios. We got this big issue going on. What are we doing? Still just ganking TVs.
There's a joke about racism in there somewhere, but I'm not going to make it.
Right. And there was, I had read, and I think we've talked about this before, this was originally either was pitched to Marvel or was going to be pitched to Marvel as an X-Men book. And knowing that the similarities, for instance, like Mother May I, it so looks like, oh, so you had like Raven was going to maybe be the primary bad person running things.
Oh, sure.
Like,
yeah.
Makes sense, right? You gotta alter a few things, but you've got the mutants, and if it was gonna be like the gosh, I'm forgetting their name, the Reavers. If maybe it was gonna be a few of the Reaver guys who had broken off and now they were trying to fight for good or something, like it would all line up so easily.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've talked about it before, where this basically is the X-Men storyline, humanity versus mutants. Like, Mother May I, as I was going through this book, it kind of just dawned on me. I'm like, she's basically Magneto, right? From the X-Men, right?
Yeah.
She fills that exact same role.
Yeah, she's the Ravenito.
I'm kind of disappointed by this page because this is, I think, the last appearance of Warbuck, my favorite CyberForce character. I'm glad he's not dead. Clearly, he's just injured. He's got his arm in a sling there, and I'm glad to see him. But unfortunately, that's, I think, the last shot ever that we get of him. Kind of cool looking character, but very inconsequential to the storyline.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm trying to think of like what would have been a funnier injury to make it look more Buck-like.
Maybe like part of his antler was broken off or something.
Yeah,
that would
like that. And then you got bandages on an antler.
Yeah, pull the old Marv where you just kind of put two band-aids, white band-aids, and an X,
Oh yeah. The only other thing from the page is the fact that they're fighting. They've got the Mutant Liberation Army, and I'm like, so the Mutant Liberation Front.
Yeah, like you just changed one word, and it's yeah. I think CyberForce is one of the most, all the Image comics to a certain extent are derivative of Marvel comics. Makes sense. All the guys who formed Image Comics were working at Marvel before that, and they weren't going to veer too far off of what they were doing. Of course, hoping to sell a shit ton of books at Image. But I think CyberForce is the most egregious kind of example of just even more so than Youngblood, I think, from pulling just straight up from Marvel Comics. At least Youngblood had this idea of, the idea of superheroes as celebrities, even though not well fleshed out in the Youngblood series. The basic concept, I think, is pretty solid, and I can't really think of other books that really touched upon that at that level before Youngblood. So the promise of that concept was great, but as we talked about before, the follow through just really sucked. I think it's a great idea if you do it properly, right?
Yeah, totally.
They tried in later issues. I know we've talked about the the Jim Valentino issue they did with Bad Rock, which was really fun. And then there is, I forget which of the Youngblood miniseries because there's been like 112 really. But there's one where it's Mark Miller writing it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you know, I remember the scene. They start off there in a hot tub, and you know they're doing drugs and stuff, and more kind of an extreme version of celebrity and the dark side of it and the behind the scenes. But still, that series at least touched upon that concept, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, when I saw that one, I wondered, like, I didn't remember the dates. Like, had The Boys come out yet? Because it was very much The Boys.
Very
And if it hadn't
similar.
come out yet, then like, oh my gosh, The Boys, you're totally doing what they did in that Youngblood issue.
Yeah, and
Sure.
you know, if Mark Miller did that, I mean, I could, you know, in comics, everyone's copying everyone. But I know, like when he did the Authority, there was a bit of an aspect of celebrity to his storylines there, and I thought was really good. The Authority is a series that seems to be a little bit forgotten, but that was really good.
Yeah,
When
grew
it was
out of
coming out.
Stormwatch.
Yeah. Frank Quietly had a great run on there, some great art. That's where he kind of got discovered to a certain extent. But yeah, I really enjoyed those Authority issues. Anyways, let's talk
All
about
right,
CyberForce,
page
which
one,
is not
yeah.
as great.
No. Gosh. It's
This
the
is this is the
yeah.
wall of text we were talking about, right? I imagine that's what you were going to say. When I turned, like, I read the first page, then I turned to this page, and I was like, oh my god, there's really, you know, as opposed to the first few issues, there was I think a regular normal amount of dialogue and narration and text and stuff, and then boom, you get to this page, like there's a lot to read here. It's starting to feel like Chris Claremont X-Men a little bit.
Yeah, the fact that they get recaptured off panel is kind of funny. Like we just saw them escape and they're like, oh, we're stuck again.
Yeah,
If we're gonna get captured off panel, it would be so much funnier if there was a whole bunch more panels and it was like they're recaptured and then they've escaped again while they're talking and then oh they're recaptured and they escape again, recap like just but
just
also the
have
guard facility. What are they doing all this time? Because these guys keep getting out.
just have like an 18 panel page of them running away and getting caught and running away and getting caught. Yeah, that would be probably more entertaining than this.
Yeah, because there's nothing artistically that's that interesting about this page. So instead of 4 or 5 big panels, 18, whatever, it would certainly be more fun and it would help break up this text, which also an editor could have helped break down this text and, you know, just scrunch it down, get rid of the unnecessary words, don't repeat things.
Well, and I think it's like it's almost part of the same recap of what's going on page one, where
Mhm.
she's like, you know, I don't want to forget you, Timmy. We've been through so much together. Chip, Heatwave, Impact, Striker, Ripclaw, Cyblade. You've all been like family to me. Did she really need to mention each and every one of their names here, other than to like tell the reader, hey, these are the characters involved in Cyberforce? And
Okay.
again, it's kind
Yeah.
of out of context because it's not like you're going to associate a name to a face here, right? If let's say this is your first issue of Cyberforce, you don't know who these guys are,
Yeah. If she just said Timmy, you and Cyberforce have been like family to me
right?
these past couple of weeks, I guess. That I don't think it's been that long, honestly.
Days,
Uh,
maybe.
yeah, because they're gonna go through the names in a few pages anyway, so they really didn't need to do it again here. Just say Cyberforce. I do like that there's a spot where she's like, I don't want to forget you guys, and Timmy's like, you don't got a backup disc, you know? What's the
Yeah,
problem? That's
That's a
cute. I like that. It's a nice
nice
touch.
little touch. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah.
This
Oh.
this shot of everyone kind of like cheering on Mother May I kind
Uh-huh.
of like they do something in this issue a couple of times where, you know, instead of having word balloons, they just kind of have what the characters are saying as what would typically be a sound effect.
Mhm.
I think it works pretty well here. I like it because it's a crowd. But later on, and I'll point it out when we get to it, when Ripclaw's jumping out of, once again, a ship or a helicopter or something, he kind of yells, and it's done this way. And I don't find that it works as well in that shot as it does here. But here, for some reason, I accept it, and it works. They're all cheering her on. I'll mention
Yeah.
again that, you know, Mother May I, just like Warbuck, is a character that I think, unfortunately, gets underutilized. We see her a little bit in this
I agree
miniseries of
with you.
Never Again. I
Yeah.
really like her design. I
Mhm.
like her colors, that slight kind of Egyptian vibe that she's got.
Mhm. Yeah.
But other than that, there's not much to the character.
So Mother May I is kind of Magneto as far as like the speech and the position of power, but the look is Raven plus Apocalypse, like drawn on the Egyptian thing.
Yeah.
It's quite the combo. I'm just going to throw all those together. She really is given the big power speech. Like you totally could just draw Magneto in here, and he's given the speech to the mutants about rising up.
Well, this is where I kind of realized I'm like, she's just basically Magneto. You know, the same philosophically opposed sides of Professor Xavier and Magneto are represented here. It's the exact same conflict.
Yeah, and then I'm looking at it going, well, then who's Stryker filling in for? Is this Cyclops here?
Yeah.
You know, is the shooter, and it would make some sense because they did later have where like Cyclops kind of sort of switch sides. I mean, as far as philosophy wise. So if he was the guy check in of like, I don't feel like he's completely wrong, and Professor X is kind of a jerk. So I'm here and I'm opposed, but I'm also agreeing with some of the stuff. Yeah.
It's funny. It just dawned on me now, and I'm probably stupid for not noticing before, but Stryker's kind of like Cable, really, in his design. He's half cybernetic. It's just Cable's got one arm, Stryker's got three.
Yeah.
He's got a ponytail, and and he's got the glow up eye, right? Like
Yeah, his only real problem is he's younger. He's younger and he's got more hair.
Yeah. He's just slightly better looking than Cable.
He needs to be more grizzled looking and have bigger guns. He's using those little handguns. I mean, come on. You got 3 arms over here. You could literally like one arm's on the trigger while the other arm coming up from underneath is holding the steady. And then the other side has the rifle. So then like the other arm is holding the weapon while the left hand is steadying it. And he's walking through halls, like shooting both ways, but 2 arms per rifle properly.
Yeah. And I mean, the way he's working out his cybernetic arms in issue 1 and building up that cybernetic strength, he should be able to hold guns the size of cars, really.
Yeah. How visually fun would that be?
Very. I'd love to see that.
So again, wall of text. So much text. It's not just the amount, it's just how the letterer is doing it, where they're not breaking the bubbles down more. Like just break them down more so that we get point, point, point. It would also cloud the art less because you can barely see Chip back there. Like he's almost lost in the text. Yeah. And it's also the order in which they have people speak, where there's that one word balloon that starts off that it's Cyblade, but like that could just as easily be pointing to Impact, or it could be going down the page to just go ahead and start talking with Heatwave right away. Her going through everybody's names and checking in, and then like, well, okay, we'll have Ripclaw say this part of what's going on, and then Heatwave will say this part, but there's no real personality to it that makes me feel like each of these characters is involved in the scene. It just feels like there's a bunch of text and it's being assigned.
Yeah. Like the text is interchangeable. Any of these characters could be saying any of the stuff here. It's really just a lot of exposition, once again, crammed into this page, because again, this whole issue feels like that, where they're just having to cram so much story into this last issue to conclude the whole kind of storyline. I will say, art-wise, really beautiful page. I always love the the double splash pages, but that also include extra panels. So you've got a bit of storytelling going on. You've got the cool establishing shot. I like the fact that the car is kind of sticking out of the panel and almost leading you into the bigger panel. I think that's a nice little touch. You've got the establishing shot once again on the right of the Cyberdata building. I believe that's what that is. Cyberdata Technologies. Yeah, exactly. And one thing I'll say about Mark Silvestri, let's compare him to, say, this kind of shot from Youngblood or Rob Liefeld, right? When they're in it. I mean, here I feel like they're in kind of their they are in their underground lair. They're not in a ship or anything. But if you compare it to shots of Youngblood in their ships, Mark Silvestri still has that storytelling skill of these characters are doing something in this scene. They're hitting buttons, they're accessing the computer, where Rob Liefeld will just kind of have them standing there or sitting there and just kind of not doing much. At least Mark Silvestri has the wherewithal to have them actually kind of still somewhat involved in the scene and what's going on and doing something rather than just kind of posing. And I mean, you know, it could be argued that Sideblade here is posing a little bit, but you know, she's still doing something. She's got a device in her hand. She's about to have someone pay for something with a debit card, and she's about to enter it into the system there for tax purposes. Yeah. That'll be 1999.
Yeah, it does look like that. Gosh, I mean, the kind of the biggest thing, and we're running into it, we're talking about it, is that how much they're having to cram into this issue to complete the story, even though really it's being made complicated, but it's not that big a story. It's actually pretty
I would
small.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Just cyber data is behind this housing shutdown that the mayor wanted. And so he had cyber data operatives, he had got these mutants to go steal these discs, but then had cyber data steal them back. But then they fall in the hands of Mother May-I because of Timmy. And then she used them to find out what was going on. And then is using the weapon that he set up, which is going to shut down the city. And he was going to blame it on the mutants, but now Mother May-I is using it. That's not that complex, but it was really hard to figure that out because it wasn't well written. And seriously,
because it was presented in such a convoluted kind of fashion. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
they're kind of, it's almost like they're kind of having to re-explain it all in this issue so that, you know, I guess they think it's going to become a little bit clearer, but because there's so much text, it almost has the opposite effect of like, man, you know, I'm even more confused than I was before.
Yeah, it's rough.
Character smoking, I like that.
Oh, well, it's bad guy, you know.
Oh,
bad.
Evil people smoke. Yeah, yeah. I am glad though that Image doesn't have that no smoking the smoking ban that Marvel has, right?
Yeah, it was lame when Wolverine stopped smoking, and
it just, if any character, it makes sense that he would smoke. It's Wolverine. He's got the healing factor. He's not going to die from smoking. You know what I mean? And he's been around for 200 plus years. You know what I mean? He was smoking the original tobacco that was grown by the Aboriginals. You know what I mean? Literally no chemicals or anything. He was smoking his pipe probably back in the day.
Yeah, I guess I grew up through the childhood of where like the previous generation had all smoked, and then my parents were in the generation that started out with it, but were sort of moving away from it as the information was coming in. And then I was in the generation of like, oh, it still looks cool, but we're hearing a lot of bad things. And then it started getting X'd out. Like I was going to clubs, and like originally clubs, you smoked in clubs and you go home and like you got to take a shower. And then I was at the age where I continued going out and like, oh, that got cut out. You don't smoke clubs anymore. I would go home like, oh, this is nice. I don't feel like I'm covered in all this filth. I can just sit down and relax.
Yeah. And listen, man, I smoked when I was younger. I'm glad I quit years ago. But, you know, even though I smoked, I was all for, you know, people not smoking in clubs. I remember restaurants. You would go to restaurants as a kid and it was like, you know, I think just a little bit before my time, you could,
but it's not like it didn't waif
but
over.
there's no separation. It's not like the smoke is going to stay in that section, right? It would just waif over anyway. So it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I think you definitely need a separate area with curtains or have fans blowing it back into their area.
Well, I can remember one of like you know, the last few years where I smoked. I remember we were going through an airport where I forget where we were going. We were on a trip to the West Coast. We were going from like East Coast Canada to British Columbia, and we had to stop over at the airport in Alberta. And I remember I'm like, okay, I want a cigarette, and there was a smoking room, right? And it was just this tiny room with a wall glassed off, obviously. So again, the smoke doesn't wafe out and whatever. And I remember opening the door, and just as I opened it, the smell just hit me. And I was like, ugh. And I went in and I had a cigarette, but I was like, man, this is completely disgusting. And then years later, I had stopped smoking. We went to Vegas, and I just completely forgotten that you can smoke. I would assume you can smoke in the casinos in Vegas. And I remember getting to our hotel and just grabbing that first set. There's two sets of doors, opening up that first door, and then the smell of cigarette just hit me. And I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot that they can still smoke here. So we kind of walked through the casino real quick and got up to our room because it smelled like 1982 or something.
So don't smoke, kids. I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah. Like I'm definitely not, I like to see characters smoke in comics because there are people who smoke in real life and it's just kind of representative of society and what people do. I'm definitely not encouraging smoking, but Nick Fury, Wolverine thing,
Yeah.
I want to see them smoking. That's all.
Old school dudes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they have a plot twist that just happens out of
I
nowhere.
was gonna say really out of left field here and there's no reason for it. There's no bearing on the plot. So I just thought this was a weird moment.
No lead up to it. It doesn't make sense. She doesn't explain like if there was something where she was thinking like, oh yeah, I'm manipulating him so that he'll be more likely to look out for me later or something like that. That would make sense, but it just shows him.
There's no explanation or real reason for it. So it just really comes out of nowhere. Very odd.
Yeah.
I wonder if Mother May I feels like she's having a threesome because all those extra arms.
I mean, if it was Warbuck, it would have made more sense. Like if she kissed Warbuck before they left him behind or something.
Yeah.
That would have been better.
But now
yeah.
he's War Cuck is who he is because Stryker's getting all the action.
Yeah. So then what they drop in here is that the assistant who, we kind of got from the beginning was evil and was communicating with someone else. Now they have to rush like, oh yeah, that thing that we did in the first issue where we hinted at that he's talking to somebody else and might not totally be on our side. Oh, now the guy from Cyberdata chimes in to like, hey, you need to get back to work. And I don't even know how the guy from Cyberdata knows that the guy's fawning over Mother May I. Like we just find out now that he's been fawning over her and that this upsets him when it's like, dude, the assistant. So we find out, oh, she maybe plays around, whatever. He's upset because he's fawning over her. And then his other boss chimes in, hey man, don't just be laying around like some schoolboy. You need to get back to work or we're gonna have to cut you out. Like, how did all that happen so quick?
Yeah. Stop the Peep and Tom stuff and get to work.
Yeah, if the Cyberdata guy at least said, dude, we got cameras everywhere. So we see you sitting there not doing anything while you're staring at these monitors. Just at least explain it. Otherwise, it just seems like, how does he know?
You can crank one out later. This is not the time.
Right. We have real work to get done here. Just complete info dump feeling.
A lot of people at computers in this issue pushing buttons.
Oh, yeah.
More of that here.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, everybody's pushing buttons in that scene.
And unfortunately, again, what really takes this book down is the story, the dialogue, the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at these 2 pages once again, the art is just stellar. You know what I mean? If you had a really good story with this art, this could have been a classic, but yeah, it just falls way short when it comes to story.
Yeah, there's a real problem with the lettering throughout where there's so much text that the letterist is having a hard time trying to get it all in. So you get these dense blocks. So then it's covering over art and it's taken away from the attractive aesthetic that the artist is spending a lot of time creating. And we read, I think it was issue 3 where it was very text light and maybe issue 2 as well. So they just needed to develop these story points as they were going.
And I'm always for brevity in comics, right? If you can say it simply and short in 1 sentence instead of 4, you should do that. Yeah. I can't we talked about that dialogue phylactery balloon earlier on where we said you can take this out, you can take this out. I'm sure if we were to nitpick and go through all of this dialogue, we could cut it down very easily to just a more manageable amount of words here. And like you said, that won't clutter up the art so much. It's called editing. That's basically what it is. I feel like there's not much editing going on. And maybe because these comics are being produced, again, deadline wise at the last second, they're just like, we just got to get this out. There's not that last kind of, call it editing, quality control, whatever it is. There's not that extra layer of editing that you would probably get, say, at a Marvel Comics or a DC Comics, right?
Yeah. Page 7, the one thing I do like is just Timmy's escaping again. Just, time to get back to it.
He's really good at escaping. He's just not good at not getting caught again.
Yeah, and staying escaped. Yeah, you think he could work that out better. I don't have much else to say about that. This page, they've captured her again. Again, they're going to wipe her mind out to make her an assassin, even though they have better. It's like the person who's helping make her an assassin is already a really good assassin. Like, just have Killjoy go do the assassinating. It doesn't make sense.
Assassinating?
I purposely am.
I was gonna say I figured that was purposeful, but I like when people make up words like that. Very nice.
Yeah. Yes, kids, assassination would be the correct way to say it, but I thought assassinating just sounds funny.
Like when I say imagey.
Oh, also not
not a word.
Ah, I love the silhouette on this page. It's a great page for it. The only thing is I do wish that Velocity was silhouetted too, because she's already white, and that stripe would stand out so well if they had done a white shape for her.
Yeah,
And
I
like,
see what you're saying.
sure, you'd lose a little bit of like that hand, you know, or maybe just give just enough line work to frame the hand a little bit, but it would have looked cool, her in white, but with the stripe.
Agreed. This is a funny panel because it makes no sense. If I read this out, when I read the book, I was like, what? So you've got Killjoy, you know,
Yeah.
it's obviously there's a blackout, no electricity. Killjoy's like, she's getting away.
Yeah.
And the guy, the scientist, don't worry about her. She's heavily sedated. I need you to turn on the emergency power switch. So don't run after this person that we've gone through all this trouble of kidnapping and bringing here. Turn the power back on. Couldn't that guy just do that himself? He's already pointing to where the switch is, so he knows where it is. Wouldn't it just make more sense to say, like, yes, Killjoy, catch Velocity, I'll turn the power back on. So it's one of these panels where I'm like, man, they just, you know, literally did that so that the plot can continue and Velocity can escape, right?
Yeah.
Kind of weak.
Yeah, very, very, very kind of weak. And also for her to be super fast, so it makes sense she could escape. Just have the speed be the reason, not this silly misdirect. But also she escapes for all of one panel and then is recaptured again.
Once again. Yeah. It's amazing the amount of times, you're right, you pointed it out, the pattern of this running away and getting caught and running away and getting caught with Velocity and Timmy. Like, this has been going on. Issue 1 starts with her running away. You know what I mean? Like, kind of this repeated trope all throughout this miniseries. It's starting to get really ridiculous.
With Impact in the background of panel 2, and then there's those curved clouds in panel 1 and 3, it almost creates a weird dynamic where it's like they're shoulder pads or something. They're not, but it just creates a strange dynamic that attaches that to him.
Well, the colorist, unfortunately, used pretty much the same colors for the clouds that he's using for Impact. So you're right. It does create almost like the top part of those panels are one panel, right? That continue, but they're not. Creates a weird tangent.
Yeah, right. It would have been good if maybe the one panel in the middle, if they did a shorter panel and had it start a little lower and end a little higher so that it stood out.
Or just give the clouds a completely different color. You know, that would have separated as well.
You could do that too.
That hatching on Mother May I's face there is pretty extreme. The forehead section there. I mean, it works and it's fine. I'm okay with it, but it's a very image. I'll use that word again. Imagey kind of panel there.
It probably wouldn't look as odd to you if the colorists weren't also doing multiple layers to build up a 3D aesthetic. Plus all the effects that are on her eye, if it was flatter colors and they were just letting the line work do its thing.
Yeah.
I think
the line work's already defining the volumes really well. So the color, this is kind of the overdue that Image gets criticized for, especially when it comes to colors. That's kind of a good example of that for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. You got anything else for page 9?
Listen, that's about it. You know, she addresses the city here on video and telling them what's happening. The end of the world, basically, as this character says at the bottom.
Except it's just the end of the one city. You know,
I was gonna say the end of New York, or just a shitty situation for New York, not necessarily the end.
Yeah, it's overblown. Page 10 offended me. just because out the gates, you've got the dude who can fly is flying out of a van at street level, but the people who can't fly are jumping out of the ship, crashing down. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why don't you flip these two? Have the dude who flies out of the ship down, and he starts from the rooftop going down, and then have Ripclaw and Impact coming in level 1, working their way up, and then Cyblade can work out either way. I don't whatever. But
Who knows if she can fly or not? We don't even know.
It's just so quirky, weird to do it this way of having the ground people doing an air assault and the air guy doing a. Why is he flying right above the ground?
It's faster, I guess.
Poorly planned.
This is the shot of Ribclaw I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the crowd chanting "Mother May I," right?
Oh.
And it was kind of drawn out as like a sound effect would be, and I thought it worked there. Here, it's him going. I don't know exactly how I should say that. Iyahi or something. Iyahi. I'm gonna assume. And then you've got the thought balloon from Cyblade, who's like, "You'd think I'd be used to it by now, but Ribclaw's war cry still sends chills up my spine." This is an instance where I don't think it works quite as well. I think this should have been in a word balloon, maybe some big letters and stuff, but like, I don't know if even as a kid I really even noticed that it was actually there until I reread it now as an adult and kind of, okay, yeah, he is screaming here, but it's just I didn't really associate it, I guess, visually with what was going on when I was a kid. That was the actual war cry.
Yeah, I think if they did something if they did an effect that sounds more like a roar, like a lion roar or a bear roar, and just go ahead and make it animalistic, her thing might work better. But also, you could take it out of this thought balloon text and just have her say, like, even after all this time, your war cry sends chills up my spine.
Yeah.
Because generally, I think speech works better in comics than thought balloons. Like, really only use thought balloons.
I totally agree. Totally agree. If you can find a slightly more natural way for the person to say it out loud, it's always better than a thought balloon, for sure.
Yeah. There's also that weird lineup there where Heatwave, who's the leader, to all units, top to bottom, rock and roll. And like, what does that mean? I'm in the military and I have to try to make up what you mean. Okay, top to bottom, the skyscraper, I guess. So you're going to work top to bottom, but you're not, because some of you are going in ground level and some of you are coming in at the top. So if you did all be in the ship and start working your way down, that would be top to bottom, but you're not.
Yeah, well, listen, as with a lot of the dialogue in this issue, it doesn't always hit its mark, I guess.
Yeah, they're just making it up. Well, of course they're just making it up, but like, it's being
it doesn't feel as authentic as it should.
Yeah. It'd also be cool if they wanted to make it more thrilling, like just have like Impact driving the van in and he just and then maybe flies out the front of the van after it crashes through the wall and crashes into soldiers, and like, oh wow, he did make an impact. Like, just go ahead and play into it.
And yeah, that's like that Jean-Claude Van Damme movie where he's a twin, double impact.
Oh,
you've got the van hitting and then Impact busting out of the van.
Yeah. Right. That's double impact.
That's right. Yeah. You know which movie I'm talking about? Remember that one?
I do. Yeah.
I always thought the trailer was hilarious, where like, the Asian villain kind of realizes, they're twins. And I just always remember this line where he goes, "There's two of them." And I was like, well, yeah, they're twins, right? Like that's the whole, premise of the movie.
There's one other thing on that page I want to give notice to, is that we've known nothing about these characters. So we're in issue 4 and we don't know, we never learned their origin. I think, was there somewhere in the comic where it said they used to be part of Cyberdata? I think I had to read that elsewhere. They were.
It might have been said in passing, but I'm with you where I learned more about CYBERFORCE from Wizard magazine and their origins stuff than I did from the actual book. And this was a common thing, I think, with we've talked about before with CYBERFORCE and Youngblood especially. Wildcats, as far as the team books go, I think was a little bit better at establishing the characters within the series and what their powers are and their relationships and stuff. But yeah, Cyberforce and Youngblood. Listen, I would even say maybe Cyberforce is a little bit better than Youngblood at it, but not by much.
Yeah, because I like Impact. I know nothing about him. I don't know anything about Cyblade. I knew nothing about. I don't know anything about Striker. Ripclaw was the only one we got a little bit of characterization about him at the get-go, just because they were kind of pushing the Native American.
But then that's really all we know, right? And that's really all that defines his character right now, where he's Native American. He's got a Native American war cry. He writes poetry, right? Like,
or reads it. Yeah. So then Heatwave, they just mentioned where he's like, "Oh, my Navy SEAL training is going to come into use." So then, hey, we learned something.
Now we know that he's a Navy SEAL or was.
Yeah. So if you'd peppered in like 1-2 details about each of these 5 people throughout the comic, come issue 4, we'd kind of know them. But instead, they're just blank slates with a look and a power, and that's it.
Yeah, and it doesn't make the reader form any kind of connection to any of these characters. I'd argue the one character maybe where we feel a bit more of a connection is with Velocity, because she's probably the one we know the most about at this point.
True. Yeah, absolutely. Man, the enemy they're fighting, it's like these guys, they come from they shop at the same place as the Wildcats enemy.
Yes.
Yeah. They're just too generic and similar.
Yeah, West Coast henchmen's or something. That's the store where they get their stuff.
Yeah, not great. We've talked about this before. We finally get what's supposed to be our Wolverine Sabretooth rivalry. We saw them fight once before, but it was over real quick. And then we get a rematch. Oh, okay, cool. Like, at least we're trying to pay this off a little bit. But then the way the battle actually works, we really don't get much of a fight. There's too much of this big image that's wasting a lot of real estate. And then we're wasting real estate on the fact that his claws expand when we could be getting 2 pages of the battle raging, because we need to see it. They talk about it, but we barely see a fight at all.
And to me, the way the sequence where his claws expand is just kind of cluttered and framed where like you kind of get a sense of it, but I feel like it could have been just so much better, especially with the amount of space he's got on this page to do this sequence. It's not the most effective way of showing that transition from flaccid fingers to erect fingers. If I can make a slight sexual reference there to there's some sort of underlying sexual subconscious thing going on there.
Yeah, I agree with you, because it really barely looks like they're expanding. It's almost just like he's closing his hand.
It's like if the frame had gotten bigger for each shot, right, and you would see more of the hand and more of the expansion. It's just the expansion isn't that obvious. Really, to me, it just looks like his fingers get slightly pointier, right? Like it's not.
They needed to expand out of the panel and like out of the panel and then off the page.
Or just make sure that by the time you get to that third panel, they're a lot bigger and more menacing than they are in panel 1, right? I would even make the fingers in panel 1 even rounder on the ends, right? To drive home the point that they're growing into claws. This is one thing where we've talked a lot about how Ripclaw and Warblade from Wildcats have pretty much the similar kind of power set and abilities. But I feel like, I think it was probably in issue 4 of Wildcats where we get a pretty good sequence of Warblade expanding those claws. I think Jim Lee, got the idea across much better than what Mark Silvestri's doing here. And yeah, the double page splash, it's a great shot, but I mean, such wasted real estate here. Absolutely. That could have been dedicated more to the fight and the conflict between Ripclaw and Buzzsaw.
Yeah. And what a more impactful opening it could have been if you just show that Ripclaw comes into the spot, just have him get hit from behind. Like, just have one of these buzzsaws just go up his back, and that be the opening panel where we're like, oh, whoa, we're right into it. And the bad guy struck first, and now he's down. All
Character
right.
looks cool though. I do like the design of Buzzsaw. He's very 90s, but one of the better designs. Kind of in line with what we talked about when we reviewed issue 1. A lot of the bad guys, the cyber
Yeah.
data bad guys, look cooler than CyberForce.
Yeah, they're all cooler. Would have been better to have a series about them. Um, and then while they're trying to set up this epic battle, I mean, it flips back and forth. Like, go ahead and like have the cut and show us more of that battle before we flip over to this one. I don't even. I mean, there was a little bit of an entry of they were running in somewhere, but these panels are so small and there's so little detail to it. I don't really feel like I knew what was going on. Like it's there, but it's not done very well. And then like, okay, they were up front. I guess they're inside. Oh, now these guys jumped on them. But now we're gonna slide on over to Ripclaw running in. And again, that panel would have greatly set up for him just getting sliced up the back before he even knew what was coming. Would have been much better.
Yeah, he also does the thing where, usually this is an unwritten rule. You don't always have to follow it, but that silhouette panel to me should be flipped. In American comics, the way we read left to right, you should almost always have characters running left to right. And he breaks that rule in the page before too with the subway train that they're on there. To me, you should flip those and everything should be going left to right.
Yeah, anytime you can where it's not going to break the story. Yeah. So then they get back to that fight and they're just blasting and only 2 panels. So it's a lot of real estate. That's not a lot happening in it.
Agreed. Yeah. It's just characters kind of showing up and yeah, that's about it really.
Yeah. And then I'm forgetting his name, but the energy character is definitely gotten very boring. He doesn't have the spikes of energy coming off. He doesn't have the crackle. He's just a silhouette that's blue with some shading. Very dull.
Yeah, what was visually cool about him is basically completely disappeared by this point.
Yeah, he's definitely losing it over time. It's a disappointing sequence. I mean, it's so trying to build up and then it's not really paying off. Gosh.
I don't even know what to say about this page. Once again, just the amount of dialogue is just crazy.
Yeah. Oh, the only thing I was going to say about this one is the fact that Killjoy was in that lab and then was supposed to go reset the generator, but now she's over here. So that also kind of makes that scene like this doesn't quite make sense. Like she should be over there dealing with something unless they've arrived at that lab, which if they have, and they probably have, it's not well expressed. It's like the details are there, but
yeah, I mean, this page just kind of, again, it's just that idea that characters just all of a sudden show up. It's not really explained where they were coming from. There's no preamble to show them making their way there. They just, boom, here we are.
Yeah, and it's just large panels they're not, again, there's a lot of real estate and not a lot happening in it. And there's plenty of space to show these kind of storytelling details. You were already starting to talk about this one.
Well, I was just going to say, it's another one of those pages that when you turn to, you're like, oh man, this huge block of text I got to read now. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're getting back to, I guess it's this conflict with the assistant who's working behind the scenes and betraying her. And then Mother May I's it's weird how she talks about her children, because like, oh, these are your children, but you're using them as assassins and agents. So,
yeah, you can't be that much in love with them or taking care of them when you're sending them out to die, basically, or possibly.
Yeah. And then, now the reveal of who grabbed Velocity a couple pages back. It's like, oh, Ballistic grabbed her. So now Ballistic is switching up sides for reasons.
And the thing, too, is she's got those purple gloves on, right?
Right.
That shot of Velocity getting caught, I don't like that looks to me more like the assistant, the Asian dude's hand than Ballistic. So I don't know if he handed her over to Ballistic or if that was meant to be. It's not explained. It's just not explained.
Right. So if it were well explained, then we'd know like, oh, here's the assistant, and I've been working plans behind the scenes, and Ballistic agrees with my side, So, haha. Oh, actually, Mother, may I? Yeah, I'm on his side. You know, I'm on his side of this split. It could have been
It
done
could be,
well, but
and it could be easily fixed, right? That first panel, you can have the assistant where he is, but just holding on to velocity, and right away be like, oh, he's the one who put his hand on her face. That previous panel where we saw her being taken, and maybe in this one, two, three, the fourth panel, he's kind of handing her over to Ballistic, and then we see Ballistic, threatening her with a gun. There's an easy fix with what's already here. It's just it wasn't thought of.
yeah, really not. Okay. So this one suffers badly. This again, you've only got 3 panels, and this fight that's supposed to be epic, but we've barely seen anything. And now Ripclaw is explaining to us, like, oh no, oh my god, how am I forgetting it? Buzzkill. Buzzkill.
Buzzsaw. Buzzkill. That's funny.
Oh yeah, Buzzkill would be. Oh gosh, Buzzkill's better.
This book
Yeah.
is a buzzkill. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Buzzsaw. He's like he's faster and his mechanisms are working better, and I'm gonna run out of energy, and I better find a way to finish this quick, or I'm gonna lose. Like, stop telling us that. Show that. That's what the visual art's for. Show us the story. And then
Absolutely.
the words should be for explaining the motivations or for their inner thoughts about what's going on. But show, don't tell. And Mark Silvestri is a fantastic artist, so the fact that this is happening is very frustrating because you know he knows he's good
This
at
is
this.
almost kind of a similar setup to the few pages before where we're saying kind of the same thing, where it's like it's a bunch of cool shots of action and things happening, but I mean, nothing else really. It's kind of, we're repeating again what we've already seen, really.
Yeah, and the text is having to tell us the story that we're not getting from the visuals. We're just getting cool shots, like you're saying, but not.
Exactly. Yeah. We're getting pinup shots, but not a lot of storytelling. One, I like to point out when the sound effects evoke something kind of funny to me.
Yeah,
That bottom panel on the right hand side of, is that Psychotron? Is that his name?
yeah.
So he's using his powers, and the sound effect is OOWEE.
Uh-huh.
I mean, for some reason, I'm thinking he's going owie, and I can't get that thought out of my mind, and it just seems kind of ridiculous to me. That's
Also,
just a weird choice of sound.
so over on the previous page where they've got Psyblade and she's leaping and she's throwing something at the enemy. And while she's doing that, she's literally saying, I wonder how Ripclaw is doing. I wish he was here to help. You then do that and then cut back to Ripclaw. Like, the panels are in the wrong order. It should have
yeah.
making this statement of like, we wish he was here, we need him, and then cut to
And
his
then you
battle.
see that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna lose. I'm being overwhelmed here. It's just it's an easy flip too. You could easily go back and do that and make it right. Disappointing.
We got the old cliche of two power sets kind of pushing at each other there with those last 3 panels. What is it? The immovable object versus the, I forget what the second part of that is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and then yeah, so then they're messaging Ripclaw, and again, there was supposed to be an epic battle that we don't get to see. It went from Ripclaw going like, oh, he's faster and he's better, and I better be able to figure something out. And then now he's like, oh yeah, I'm just about wrapped up all up here. I got it, no problem. Like, were there a couple pages they cut out that we didn't get to see? Like, we haven't even seen this battle, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't feel like I saw any epic battle at all.
Well, it's like they're kind of establishing on the earlier page that Ripclaw now is kind of the underdog, right, in that fight, because Buzzsaw is so much quicker than he was before. And
Yeah.
now when we get to this bit here, all of a sudden, clearly he's not the underdog and he's got everything under control. So it's kind of an odd transition without seeing really anything involving Ripclaw in between those 2 sequences.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been very helpful.
I don't hate the resolution to the fight here. The idea that, Buzzsaw kind of charges towards him and he just kind of does the old moving out of the way and he's top heavy and he falls off. I mean, in a better book, maybe I would have enjoyed it more, but there's something kind of fun to that, where you expect it to be Rib Claw using his claws to cut through him or whatever, and he just does kind of something simple. It's a little bit funny. It's a little bit kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Somewhat unexpected to a certain degree, and I kind of appreciate that. But
So I got a fix for it.
sorry.
If he had extended out a long claw that went out and just stabbed through Buzzcut's foot, so as he's rushing forward all top heavy, and it just pinned a foot to the ground, and then he smashed on the ground, and then Ripclaw was just on top, just slicing away.
That's kind of what we expected more of, and I would, I'd like to see Ripclaw use his claws more. That's kind of like his whole personality, really. Or maybe as he's running, you just throw in this extra little panel to the right there where there's too much dialogue, where Ripclaw kind of cuts through the bottom part of both of his legs, so he kind of cuts his feet off at the ankles, and then he topples over.
It's also, there's throughout these pages, there's this consistent back and forth of like, you're seeing this part of the battle, and then now you're seeing this part, and then now you're over to this part, and then like, do you need to do that constantly, or could we have seen a full page of the battle over here and then a full page? I don't know.
Yeah,
if
the intercutting of the sequences just leads to more confusion, really, and it feels it feeling like both the sequences are somewhat incomplete. There are definitely instances where that can work dramatically, and I can't think of an example right now, but tons of movies and books that have done this before. But I just don't think they're clever enough and it's effective enough in this book for it to actually work.
Yeah. And then we're cutting back to the room with the assistant who's telling the cyber data agents, whatever these guys in the suits are, to like shoot at Mother May I. But then both Ballistic, and like when Ballistic and Stryker start shooting, I don't immediately know who they're shooting at. Like I would think they're shooting at each other, but then he's shooting at the guy in the suit. Is she also shooting at the guy in the suit? Like I would have liked a pan out shot so that we can see the shooters, who they're shooting at, and then you can give us close up panels for detail purposes.
Yeah, it is kind of confusing as to who Ballistic is shooting at there visually. The bottom panel is fine in the sense that it's pretty clear Stryker is shooting at one of those cyber data guards or whatever you want to call them, henchmen. But who Ballistic is actually shooting at is very unclear.
Yeah, and you really kind of don't need panel. Well, okay, panel 3 shows Stryker getting in front to protect Mother May I, but you can barely see her because so little of her is sticking out.
It's not. Yeah, you're right. You don't pick up on it right away. It almost looks like just a shot of Stryker, and then if you really pay attention, you're like, oh, Mother May I is right there behind him.
Again, the colors are the issue, where she's just blending in because he's got some blue in his armor. She's got blue, and
a smaller shot of her, maybe in silhouette or something, I don't know, would have probably been a little more successful here.
And the cape is the framing, which is cool, but the problem is that cape is so lost that I just think there's a black shape back there. If he was smaller in the frame so that more of her was revealed, it would be obvious.
Yeah, you're right. The only time I realized that was a cape is when I kind of worked my way down and saw those folds at the bottom. If you're really just looking at the top mid part of the panel, it just looks like a design element, just a shadow he kind of casts across the background there.
Yeah, in this page, I really want to think that Ballistic and Stryker are just shooting at the same guy. To me, that would be hilarious.
That's what it feels like.
See it visually. Because in the next page, they both end up behind cover, and I'd like to picture their like they came from different sides, both shot at the guard, then ended up behind the same cover, and then maybe have their little, like, they kiss for a second, then wait, no, back to the fight. Like that would just be kind of a payoff from the flirting before.
This sequence is somewhat confusing to me in the sense that, am I supposed to read from left to right at the top? You know what I mean? Is the whole sequence at the top and then at the bottom? I don't think it is, right? You're meant to read the page on the left and then the page on the right.
Right. Correct.
It's just not a good idea storytelling wise, layout wise to do it this way.
Yeah, they need to shift it a little bit. So if you're supposed to read all this page, the next page starts lower, so you don't have, it doesn't feel like it just cuts across. Um, it's also an odd sequence because you get the guy draws his gun, and I guess, well, I'm having to look for the lettering. It does look like he fires a lot of shots, not enough. If he fired 6, he's still got another 6 rounds at least. He might have 13,
Yeah.
depending on the size of his magazine. So then when she like mentally makes him put the gun to his head and then click, like, no, not with a gun of that type. Like, that's a 9mm or a roundabout. He's got plenty more rounds. So that sequence wouldn't work out.
Yeah, because from what I can tell here, you know, if we're looking at that panel bottom left there, blam, 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 that's 4 bullets that are attributed to him, right?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and maybe, yeah, maybe even 5, but whatever the case, there'd be plenty left. So her mentally controlling him would lead to him getting shot, which would be fine because they're about to take him out anyway. So it's weird that it's like, oh, click. But then the guard that's supposed to be protecting him goes like, all right, forget this. Again, visually, who's shooting at who? Because Stryker's behind one bit of cover. We see Ballistic facing the other direction. So you'd think that they're facing off. So I guess they weren't shooting at the same guy. And then this robot guard or guy in armored suits, like, forget all this, and he shoots a big explosive at him, which then leads to, oops, blows the assistant out the building, the guy he's supposed to be guarding.
And knocks Velocity and Ballistic off to the side, which is odd because he was aiming at Stryker.
Yeah, who's apparently unaffected in this whole situation. And then getting knocked out leads to Ballistic having a memory of childhood, because we've gotten throughout, there's been a couple of times, I think it's been 2 times, of Velocity having these memories and like, oh, mom came, and oh, wait, she has a sister, and then this is the reveal that Ballistic is that sister. And
also their mother is Mother May I.
Yeah, and then, she turned around.
Which I'm like, that's such a weird kind of random reveal, right? Like, it just doesn't seem, it seems just very convenient, I guess, to tie all the characters in together somehow, that this whole flashback not only just includes Velocity, one of the characters, and her memory of her sister and her mother, but that her sister is Ballistic and that her mother is Mother May I.
Yeah, they need to have a sequence in here where Mother May I also has a memory come back, so that she too had her mind wiped and didn't know. Because otherwise she's just a really horrible monster who literally was brainwashing one of her daughters to go assassinate the mayor and destroy their life, and then has been using Ballistic and never shown any kindness to her either.
Yeah, so and also, as you know, we're seeing here in the flashback, add to that the fact that when they were kids, there was some weird situation in the house. I guess some sort of explosion happened last issue, and we're back to the moment after that happens here. And she just abandons her kids. She just abandons them to later on kidnap them and turning them into cybernetic assassins. It's very odd and convoluted.
So if I'm remembering right, she's under the thumb of cyber data, and then she knows about her children and just goes back one night all angry and decides to burn the house down. Like,
okay,
I can't have my kids, so I'm just gonna burn them to death, and abandons them in this fire, except they survive. And then after they survive, she's then brainwashing one of them to be an assassin, and like, what? It really, she needed to have a mind wipe too, so that she finds out this information as well, and then can have like the change of heart moment, because as it is, she's just a horrific monster. Like,
yeah, absolutely. She's a horrible, horrible person.
And Magneto had his kids in the fight, because he had his 2 kids, if you'll remember. He Quicksilver,
Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, Scarlet Witch were his kids. So again, are you playing off of that? Are you just doing the X-Men thing that you saw, but you don't have the ability to use it right because you're not a writer?
Yeah, you're not establishing those relationships properly, so that they're clear and understandable. Where here it's just very convoluted. We're having to piece these things together with what very little we're given, instead of them actually taking the time to explain those relationships.
Yeah. And then then you get this whole silly sequence of like the tiny girl who I guess has no actual cybernetic modifications. She's just a mutant who's fast.
Yeah.
Cyberdata hasn't worked her over that much yet. Catches her big sister, who is enhanced with cybernetics, so she's got to be heavy. Like the little girl's probably 90 pounds. Oh,
Yeah.
wait. Oh, I remember her. They had a stat, and it was like she was barely not anorexic. But
Yeah.
let's say she's 90. Her sister, who's bigger, has got to be at least 135 at a minimum. But with the cybernetics, it's got to be 150, 160. So already physically unrealistic. Just not realistic that she would catch. They should have flipped this. It so should be Ballistic, who's been a jerk throughout towards Velocity, having the change of heart as they both have the memory, and the bigger sis, like, I'm finally here for you. Just flip the roles. It makes more sense.
Yeah.
And then you can have the cool moment of then Stryker, like, because they're falling out, and then Stryker, like, oh, I got you too, babe. Although, sorry about making out with your mother earlier. I didn't know. You didn't know either. But now we both know, and it's weird.
And listen, you're talking about, handling weight. I'm sure Stryker, as we saw, he works out his cybernetic arms, but also his regular arms. So he's pretty jacked. But wouldn't it just make more sense? He's holding up two people here with one arm. He should be using the cybernetic arm. He just should be using one of those arms.
Also, if you've got these cybernetic arms, this is a cool scene to put him to use. He's holding He's holding on with one cybernetic arm, and his other two cybernetic arms, one of them makes the catch, and the other cybernetic arm grabs and pulls
Helps them up. Yeah, absolutely.
Pulling them up while the other cybernetic arm is holding on. And you could show that sequence, and it would be...
What a great sequence that would be, to kind of show off Stryker and his cybernetic arms and abilities, and it's just kind of a huge lost opportunity. Yeah, I agree.
And as they're being inched up, the two sisters could be having the lovey-dovey, I'm sorry, we didn't know conversation as they're being tugged back up. They just miss all the opportunities.
Yeah.
And then we get this wild, like...
quick wrap-up. Yeah.
We just got to close this thing out. I guess Mother May I dies.
Yeah.
Sorry I started the fire. Okay, cool. But like, also sorry that you mind wiped your own daughter multiple times and to use her as an assassin, and sorry you were also not kind or looking out for me either. Like, you got a lot more sorries to say than just the fire.
Yeah. You've got a lot of indiscretions to be sorry for. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Listen, this whole kind of subplot of Velocity, Ballistic being sisters is one thing, but then add on to that already, that the fact that Mother May I is their mother. I think that aspect could have been taken out completely of the series, and it would still work, and it would be less confusing and convoluted. Just take out this idea that Mother May I is their actual mother. You can still have that sister relationship that gets revealed. You don't lose anything, and you don't make the book kind of just, again, very convoluted and confusing.
Yeah. And then they could be on the hunt for who was their mom together. And it could even end up being Mother May I in the end, but
later, or Killjoy for just for fun.
Oh, yeah. Really?
That's already more interesting, really.
Yeah. And then like you're saying, like in 4 panels, they do this wild wrap up with Timmy lamenting, and he gets his little play toy back. And I guess everything worked out okay, except that what happened with that mutant uprising?
Yeah.
We don't know. And what about the mayor that they were trying to take down, who was trying to take away the housing? Like, what happened there? And what about the disc with the city grid shut down? That was a whole big plot that Mother May I was pulling off, that the mayor had. What happened with that? And then, like, is Cyberdata still doing their thing, or was this a big enough, like, public explosion that Cyberdata had to go be quiet for a while? Like, what plot points? They're just hanging out there, and they didn't end at all. So my gripe with the final issue, it just feels like the story, it doesn't finish, it just ends. This
Yes,
issue
that's a good
4
way of putting it. Yeah. A few things get resolved, but a lot of the
Mhm.
major plot points don't. And it just doesn't seem like Silvestri cares at all in resolving those plot points.
Mhm.
And then, like I mentioned earlier, you know, there's 3 extra pages to this book. It almost feels like he gets to this 3rd extra page. He's like, man, I don't want to do any more extra pages for this book. Let's just wrap it up on page 25 here. Boom, 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 boom. We're out. I'm done with this book.
Yeah, it feels so incomplete. You need a moment of the two sisters having like a talk.
You need a few pages. You know, I would say
Yeah.
2 to 3 at least to really give it a final kind of send off and resolve. And even though you don't show what happens
Uh,
with the mutant uprising and stuff, maybe, you know, epilogue, you
order,
know, 2 or 3
talk
pages.
about
Well, you know, once Mother May I wasn't there to lead them, the
it.
mutant uprising kind of faltered, or, you know, something like that. But it's not even mentioned at all.
Yeah. Now it's this point. There is a wild cleavage shot going on in panel 3 though for effectively a dying character.
Yeah.
like as she's going out. Sorry about the fire.
Check out my boobs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the, you know, from the angle, I know she's wearing a bustier and all that, but feels like implants, I gotta say. Maybe cyber data are not just implanting
Oh,
cybernetics, right?
yeah, that
In
was
their
her
operatives.
enhancement. Really, really using the best technology in the world for something
It's
not that.
there's some funny stuff on this page, like the shot of Ribclaw with his arms crossed, just kind of relaxing, leaning up against, like, you know,
Oh, the
thousands
computer
of dollars
console.
worth of computer technology is kind
Yeah.
of funny to me.
Yeah, and he doesn't even mention his fight with Buzz Cut. No,
Buzzsaw.
Buzz
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Saw. Oh boy, I just can't.
And
Oh,
I do feel like on this page here, the art drops off just a little bit.
oh,
In that there's
yeah.
not, you know, there's a lot of just simple contour drawing, not a lot of hatching. Like, he's not putting as much effort into this page as he
This,
did with the rest of
yeah,
it.
this had to be. It was like there was one day to go, or not even.
It's an
He got
afterthought. Just yeah,
absolutely. There's all very basic shapes. The colorist is doing some work to try to give some more detail to it.
yeah.
This is one of the pages where it's good that they had a colorist that was really adding the textures and the layers that weren't needed on some other pages.
And then again, just to try to, you know, give it some sort of meaningful ending, you get a little bit of Ribclaw's poetry at the bottom, right?
Oh, uh-huh.
Because it is his poetry. I remember in issue 1, I for some reason originally when I read it,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I thought he was quoting some poet or something, but he says here it's from the poem "Freedom Found" by Robert Bearclaw,
Yeah.
and you know, realizing that Robert Bearclaw obviously is Ripclaw's, that's his name, right? So what does he say here? And what of the fawn in a forest of man, run away, lost and alone? Wonder who he's talking about. Searching for something, a future, a past, finding a family, home. So he is trying to kind of give it some sort of like meaningful ending,
Uh-huh.
but it just doesn't. You know, I don't know that I even remember those passages. It's not like
Yeah.
they're what's the word I'm looking for? Impactful or really kind of, you know, makes you think or anything like that when you read it. It's just like, Ribclaw writes some poetry.
Yeah. If it was expanded more, since our first introduction to him was him up on a roof observing as she's running, it would be more poetic visually if while they're together talking, he was up somewhere high looking out at all this and watching the family and saying his poetry to himself. It would wrap it back around to him as a strong solitary figure who's watching out for her.
Or even like, I don't know how great of a plot device it is, but if there had been more of it throughout the series, right? Because I think you get a little bit of his poetry in issue 1, and then you
Yep.
get some of it here at the end. But you know, if you'd gotten just maybe little extra passages of it in issue 2 and issue 3, then it would be something that's kind of more established and that you kind of
Yep.
associate more with the plot and what's going on. But here, like I said, it just feels a little gratuitous and tacked on at the end to try to give
Mhm.
the impression of some sort of meaningful ending where there really isn't. Because again, one or two things are kind of resolved. There's a whole lot that's not resolved here, and that really
Yeah.
I would call, it's not a clean ending. There's a lot of open-ended questions, like you mentioned earlier, that you're like, well, what about this? And what about that? Like, there's a lot of unresolved questions here.
Yeah, and then they after this 4 issues, I think they jump right into that crossover, the Wildcats and Cyberforce, because Jim Lee had, well, he got his 4 issues done. Oh, I guess he only had 1 issue at issue 5 working on his own story, and then yeah, they're into the crossover
Pretty
very quick.
quickly. Killer
Yeah,
Instinct, I think it was called. Yeah.
yeah, Killer Instinct. Yeah, which was not great, very forgettable. Was Chris Claremont writing on that one? Or was that a later series that he jumped on?
I'm not sure who was writing on that. I'd have to look that up. You
Hmm.
might be right though. It might be. I think you're right that it is Chris Claremont, because that I feel like that character was introduced. That female character, I forget her name, but yeah, it probably is Chris Claremont. You're looking that up?
I was trying to while we're yapping.
Yeah, let's see if I can find any info on that. Because I know later on, the character that Chris Claremont was supposed to work on at Image originally does get introduced in the pages of Wildcats, the Huntsman, right?
Oh, I think that might be the story after.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I don't think it was introduced in Killer Instinct.
Yeah. Oh well, not the end of the world.
I mean, it would make sense to bring in Chris Claremont after these two miniseries. We've said Wildcats is at least a little more solid as far as an actual story, beginning, middle, and end. Good resolution, things make sense. There's no huge dangling plot points left at the end. So definitely Wildcats is better at its conclusion than Cyberforce. Cyberforce is pretty bad. And, comparing again with Youngblood, we often compare the team books. Youngblood doesn't really even have an official conclusion in its flagship title, ends up being a flip book. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Youngblood barely has a story. It's more just a tacked on. Spawn has a great introduction, and then you get a few more details, but this it really doesn't go anywhere. Savage Dragon, it's one of our faves. The art's so consistent throughout. Issue number 1's incredible, but there really isn't a mini series. It just needs to be an ongoing series because issue 2 and 3 don't lead to or resolve anything. They're just a continuation of the story that continues on in issue 1 of the ongoing. Shadowhawk, also very similar. You get an introduction and then some things happen, and then there's sort of a like, oh, I guess I have to rethink some things, but it's not really a conclusion to a story that's been set up and told throughout. Wildcats really is the only one, and it's not that it's great. It's not great.
Absolutely
It's not well written, but it does establish a scenario, have some build up, have some additional things that come into play, and then they actually pay off and resolve the story.
That's the main thing I think with the Wildcats miniseries is, they establish plot points.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all those plot points are resolved in the conclusion. There's
Yeah.
no dangling stuff that kind of goes off left and right that just kind of like Cyberforce is left to like what happened with this and what happened with that. So yeah, like our little experiment here of looking at all the kind of initial offerings of the first storyline or miniseries for each of the Image guys. Like you said, not that it's a great story, but it's at least consistent. So I definitely think out of all the Image founders with that first storyline offering, Jim Lee and Wildcats do come out on top overall.
Yeah. If you were rating it just as their mini series, it's the only one with an actual completed story. Cyberforce, they just tons of plot points left out, and it really was so difficult to figure out what was even going on in the series. Like I really had to read through it and like piece together what the heck the conflict is, because so many people are introduced so quickly and with so little detail about their motivations. And Spawn, gorgeous art, but really nothing happens. And Youngblood, pretty art, but nothing happens. And Savage Dragon, great consistent art. It's so hard for me to like come to realizing that great setup issue, but that series just needed to be a continuing series from the get-go. Forget the mini series idea.
Well, I would, yeah, and I would excuse Savage Dragon because I don't feel like it was necessarily Larson's intent to do kind of a miniseries 3-issue storyline, beginning, middle, end, wrap up, whatever. From the get-go, it feels like he was almost doing, like you said, the ongoing series. You know, issue 1 of the regular series might as well have been issue 4, and he just kept going, where it's almost like he's doing single monthly stories, at least at first, with a few plot points continuing on into the next issue, which kind of becomes the formula, or is the formula from the very beginning of Savage Dragon till now. So I can definitely excuse him for that, in the sense that I don't think he conceived of that first miniseries as a, you know, complete series story that issue 1 continues into issue 2 and issue 3, and there's kind of an overarching plot point there. There is a little bit with the Vicious Circle and Overlord and building towards that, but it definitely feels more right off the bat like a monthly comic than obviously CYBERFORCE or Wildcats, which were clearly intended to be like one finite story in a miniseries format.
Yeah.
Because Savage Dragon, you know, in spite of that, is still pretty fun and entertaining.
Oh yeah,
right?
it's great. It's just if you judged it purely on its own as a mini series, it's like nice introduction, and then
it's not that. Really. Yeah.
It's
like,
just oh.
He didn't mean for there to be any kind of meaningful resolution in issue 3. He was just envisioning it as what he was doing before, monthly comics. And again, why he even bothered to do an issue 1 again with the ongoing series, you know, he might as well have just, you know, in my mind, it just continues on. It's issue 4 of
yeah. And with Youngblood, Spawn, and Wildcats saying, forget the miniseries, we're going to keep our numbering going. He's definitely should have done that. Wildcats could have been 4 issues, but he absolutely should have just continued on as issue 4.
Yeah, it's funny that the one guy who is still working on his book, who's up to like 200 and something 80 issues, did the old kind of 90s thing where it's like, we're going to start it over with a number 1 because, you know, number 1's sell, which is kind of surprising to me because that doesn't seem to be Eric Larson's philosophy generally. So out of all the guys that I would have expected that from, Rob Liefeld, sure, 100%. Jim Lee, sure. Even Mark Silvestri, those are the guys I would have expected it from. Although Mark Silvestri did start off with another number 1, right? When the ongoing series started?
Yep.
Yeah, so he did it too. Yeah, so that's as expected. But for Dragon to do that, I don't know if that's why he did it. You know, if there's a commercial, you know, I guess he just figured, well, you know, I promoted this as a mini series. You know, I could do number 4 and just keep going. But if I do another number 1, it might boost the sales a bit. So I can understand the marketing behind it and all that. But yeah, the one guy who his comic feels most like an ongoing monthly series.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we're going to add about CYBERFORCE number 4?
No, just
everything there, right? Yeah.
Fun to grab for the art if you see it in the dollar bins, which is where I got mine. I've been rebuying these and they're all in dollar bins. Just, yeah, they're fun to look at, snap them up, but I wouldn't pay any real money for them.
That's the thing with all the early Image books. They printed up so many of these. There's millions of copies out there. So these are all these books that we reviewed recently, the Image Founding Fathers initial offerings, can all be found mostly in dollar bins and for really cheap prices. It's usually in and around the comics bubble when that bursts that the issues become, especially with a title like Savage Dragon and Spawn that kept going for a while, those issues start to get really expensive. All right.
I can't show my top and bottom teeth like this guy. There's no, can't.
Some people have an overbite, some people have an underbite, right? So, yeah. So, plus, I got the beard kind of obscuring.
Yeah, you got closer than I did. Anyway.
All right. Well, I guess that's where we're going to end it for today, guys. So, you know, thank you for watching, if you're still watching, and thank you for subscribing to the channel. It really does help us out. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you, and it really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. Speaking of comic books, Mark and I both make our own. Mark, you can check out his stuff on Big Cartel. He's got the Guano Guy series. He's got Darkest Image, and he's
Yeah.
got Super, the Death of a Kayfabe, a kind of.
Super. That was close.
I'm still trying to get that one down. Kayfabe, the Death of a Super. What did I say? Super, the Death of Kayfabe?
Death of a Kayfabe.
That might be an interesting book as well. We should work on that. And he's also got, I lost my train of thought. Guano Guy.
Working on some new stuff. We'll announce it. Yeah.
I've hit them all. So you can check out Mark's stuff. Once again, at Big Cartel. I also make my own comics. You can check out my 13-issue series as of yet, Big Baby, and my one-shot sci-fi psychedelic cosmic adventure, STARCRASHER. And you can check those out at KINGCOMICS.CA. Mark, thanks again for joining me. It was fun. And we'll be doing more of these soon. Tune in to check them out. I believe the next thing we're going to be looking at is Wetworks. And that's going to do it for today, guys. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Thanks again to Mark, and have yourselves an awesome day.
See ya.
All right.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like, subscribe.